interested in that link you put in there for icon.me. There's a total conversation to be had there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Fascinated by that one.
You can be appalled by that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Oh, hello everybody. Opened up the stream. We'll wait for people to come on in. And then I guess you'll probably trigger your thing, right?
Yep, I'm about to Facebook. I gotta fill this in again. Shoot. AI Inside with me and Jason Howell. Live!
I guess some of these stories that we're going to be doing today have a video component, so I should call that out in the rundown so I know, because I have to do the StreamYard switcheroo thing to make that happen. I guess it's just one thing, that influencer video thing. I did come across a really funny video that I didn't put in here because it's just silly more than anything, but it's an AI interpretation of Oprah Winfrey's "You Get a Car and You Get a Car and You Get a Car." And it is, God, do I still have that? I could show that in pre-show. It is hilarious. And I don't know that it even has audio. Does it have audio? Oh, okay. All right. So let's see here. Let me see if I can play this for you. Chrome tab, You Get a Car. Just as a pre-show bonus, because it doesn't really factor into anything. You get a car! You get a car! You get a car! You get a car! It's so silly. It's so Tom Cruise turns into a car. It's obnoxious. In fact, I can turn off the audio because it just gets annoying.
I like shocked Oprah.
Yes, running away from the exploding cars. Oh, so good. Oh, so silly.
Now redo it with Cybertrucks.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, that would be a good one. I'd love to see that. You get a car. You get a car. Hello, Tay. Hello, Rob. Hello, everybody watching and listening. We are going to start here momentarily. And we are not going to play the Oprah Winfrey video. That was just pre-show fun. All right. Well, we've got some people connected. Jeff, are you feeling limber? Podcast limber?
Ready when you are, boss.
All right, cool. So I'll go ahead and remove you from the stage. Oh, let me get my screen share set up. You get a car. You get a car. Actually, the first time I watched that, I didn't hear any audio. I thought that it didn't have any audio, and I kind of like it better without audio. With the audio, it was just a little too frenetic sounding.
True, too.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and take you from the stage. Looks like we're streaming to all places. New places have been added.
I just
people
did
start
mine.
piling in. Excellent.
Hello,
welcome.
everybody.
Numbers jump. Hello, everybody. All right, we're going to get the show started here in a second. So stand by, Jeff, as those numbers increase. So cool to see that. I love it. Every time it makes me happy. All right, everybody, stand by. We're going to start AI Inside right now. Oh, wait. No, that's the overlay. Here's what I needed to put. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of AI Inside, the show where we take a look at the AI that is layered like lasagna throughout everything in technology, even in Apple lasagna, as we're going to talk today, because this is, after all, Apple Week in the world of technology. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Jeff Jarvis. How you doing, Jeff?
So if it's Apple, is it a
lasagna.
strudel then?
It's a strudel, yes.
Yeah.
This week it's an AI strudel, exactly. I love where you went with that. It didn't occur to me in the fly, but I think that's the perfect analogy. And both of us not Apple users, so
Mm,
I bet there's a lot of listeners and viewers that actually have iOS devices, but
because
neither
we're the
of us
weird
do.
ones, yeah.
Yeah, they're on
Even
the
though we're the
outside.
majority in the world, in this world, we're weird.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. We got a lot to talk about today. It was an interesting AI news week. Not a
Hmm.
whole lot of like groundbreaking announcements and pieces of news, but we did find some fun stuff to talk about. Before we get there, big thank you to those of you who support us on a weekly and monthly basis via Patreon, patreon.com/, that's the wrong lower third. Let me put up the right one here. Where is it? There it
Live
is.
before your very eyes.
Patreon.com/AI Inside Show. Philip is one of our supporters from the very beginning. And Philip, we appreciate you being on board with us on the Patreon. So very much. Also, if you are watching live, because each week our live numbers continue to grow, I encourage you to subscribe to the show, AIinside.show. You can go to our website. You can subscribe to the podcast, put it into your pod roll and whatever your podcatcher is. Is it Apple Podcasts? Is it Pocket Cast? Whatever it is, we don't care. It doesn't matter. As long as you subscribe, then you won't miss it, even if you happen to miss the live recording that we do each and every week. And we thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right. So let's get into some of the news then, because we got some stuff to talk about. And I think, top of the heap has to be Apple this time around, just because Apple had its, biggest product announcement of the year. It does it around this time of year every single year. We've got new iPhones, got new Apple Watches, and it really, I will say for the first time ever, I did live coverage of the Apple event, which I'm an Android guy, but
Heretic.
I figured it was probably the right thing to do. It's not like Apple is an insignificant player in the technology industry. So I wanted to kind of see it as
Turncoat.
more, yeah, more like an
Traitor.
Android perspective on the iOS announcement, I
So,
guess. But
apart from just generic Apple hand candy wonder, uh,
yeah.
did you see anything that made you say, "Oh, that's fresh and different" with the use of AI?
Well, I did see something that got me personally excited. And that was a feature set for the voice memo. Because, I mean, if you can see behind me, I've got guitars hanging on the wall. I'm a musician. And Apple is rolling out a new feature to their voice memo app that would allow a musician. It's very, very niche, right? It's very specific to musicians, so it's not something that everybody's going to benefit from necessarily. But if I have an idea for a song and I pull down my guitar and I use the Apple Notes, as many musicians do, they rely on Apple Notes to
Hmm.
compile their ideas on the fly. This new feature allows you to basically do a multi-track recording on top of that original recording and have them be separate recordings. So essentially what that means for musicians is I could record my guitar part when I'm inspired to do so. And then later I'm in the kitchen, cooking my pasta for lunch and I'm like, "Oh, this would be a cool vocal line over the top of it." I can open it up, I can hit record, it plays the audio out into the kitchen, I sing my part, and the recording, I'm not sure exactly how Apple is doing it. They're probably doing some sort of polarity reversal to remove the guitar that's playing into the room from the recording so that it's just your voice. But it allows you to layer your voice on top of another track so you can kind of capture more cohesive ideas on the fly. And I just thought, from a musician standpoint, I was like, "Oh, I wish I had that." Is there an app on Android that does this? Because I would love that.
And then you could
So
replace. So you could do a humming track and then replace
yeah,
that with with instrumental or something else later.
sure. Sure. And I mean, what they were saying also is like you could take that, that isolated recording and use it in your project. And I'm a little hesitant on that. Like, okay, is it really going to be that great? So great that you could actually use it in a project and it would sound good. But still, nonetheless, as far as like a prototyping tool for music, I think that's really neat. There was another feature that they showed off with the camera, the video camera, and again with sound, where if you're recording something in like a noisy environment, it has these different profiles of sound processing. So the example they gave where they were it was almost like a movie was being shot in this cafeteria, and these two guys were sitting at the counter talking to each other. And the audio recording did have the noise of the cafeteria, it had their noise, and through the processing, they could have different ways that background noise was processed. Was it removed entirely? Was it spread out into a stereo field, and then the dialogue was the centerpiece? All these different things to make it sound more cinematic or whatever. And I just really wonder, from a curiosity standpoint, how those sound. Like, it's a neat parlor trick, but is it useful?
As you're talking, what I find, because I'm just a writer, so I just type in letters and that's all I do.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas in music, you have tracks, and in digital imagery, since Adobe tools, you have layers.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at a tool. I saw a tool at a BDMI event some time ago, where the cartoon artist was using it to create the behind layer of the scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could animate, and you could do other things, right? Music, you have the tracks and layers. It strikes me as that's an obvious an opening for AI collaboration. I do these layers. Oh yeah, I'll just let the AI do that one.
Mm-hmm.
It's boring
sure.
to do the rhythm track. It's boring to do this. It's boring to do something else. Or hear what I did, and then nominate something, try something, figure out something else there. It's interesting that as opposed to me, where either I write it or it writes it. It's either or. That's not the case in the world you work in, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, the collaborative kind of aspect of things is what really excites me about this technology.
Because it is.
Yeah, and the layer enables that, right? Exactly. So it's not all or nothing. Like some of the stuff, we've talked about, like some of the music generation services like Udio and Suno and stuff, and what they're creating is a single audio file that has all the information in it, and then they're allowing you to later go in and process out the stems so you can have them isolated. It doesn't sound as good as if they were just isolated to begin with.
Right.
Something like what Apple has here kind of seems like it has it more isolated to begin with. And, that gives you a little bit more flexibility, I guess, in that collaborative process. And what you're saying really kind of what comes to mind for me too is in some of the work that I do from a visual perspective, like the thumbnail work that I do for the YouTube channel and stuff. I often find myself in a position where I'm like, I know exactly what I want in the foreground, but the background, I just need something that's interesting or colorful or abstract or whatever. And AI is great for that. I go into Ideogram and I give it a standard prompt that I have now, and it gives me some really great options for backgrounds, and it's fine. It does the trick. It satisfies. It's a nice collaboration. So
anything else from Apple that interested you?
For sure. So those were the like standout things that I was like, if I had an iPhone, I really be trying those right now. But then you've got the more standard stuff, kind of the things like what they call visual intelligence, which is anything on the screen can be used to gain more context with the AI. So we have that on Android. Gemini is certainly doing that. So that feels kind of like, okay, we're seeing this, on everybody's kind of doing a little bit of this right now. One of the examples that they give in their kind of media marketing around this feature was photo of a flyer and, use the AI to add the event details to your calendar. And that sounds pretty familiar from the Google event a couple of weeks ago.
Also
where they did that. That thing.
Interesting. That was also OpenAI's thing too, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I don't remember if OpenAI did that as well.
But it's trying to integrate with your apps, which is interesting.
Yeah.
It's getting to be agentive.
Yes, indeed. And not just something you talk or type to, but something that you can kind of point the camera at or show the contents of a screen and interact with that.
And interpret it.
That is definitely something you can do on Android devices with Gemini at this point. They also showed, demonstrated the example of using a photo of a restaurant and then interpreting that and then finding the details of the menu and the hours and stuff. So when you're walking out and about, you just, oh, there's the restaurant, take a picture, and it brings you right into all the information you need to know, that sort of stuff. So that's,
Which all goes to where glasses are going to be soon too. Yeah.
yeah, right. Yeah. Soon, define soon. Yeah, we'll see how soon it happens. But
So I didn't get into detail on this because I am an Android guy and live la vida
yeah,
Google. But I sensed that this is going to be a long rollout of Apple AI stuff. Is that there's a
October
timing
is what it. Yeah, it sounds like October is when many of these features are going to be released.
but
I
not
didn't even.
all, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly to what degree.
Mhm.
Like the things that I believe are coming out in October, better search, so like an improved search experience using AI for your photos, your email, your texts on your device, writing tools, so the standard, feature set there, summary, rewriting, proofreading, tone, all that kind of stuff. Something they call cleanup, which is removing something from an image. So that's kind of standard stuff. A memory movie, which is you ask photos to create a movie out of the photos that fit into a certain query. So that's kind of neat, I
Um,
guess. And I think a lot of these are coming. Also, updates to Siri, which I think is an important one.
just
Siri, becomes a little bit more of that voice that you can converse with. It can understand when you stumble. It's more of a conversational context. It can carry out tasks, such as adding something to your calendar based on details from the conversation, that sort of stuff. So
as Google tried to emphasize how much is going to happen locally, because you have this powerful tensor chip on your phone,
mhm.
was Apple also pushing that localness to the computation?
Yeah, Apple is often very vocal about privacy.
Exactly where I
And
was going. Exactly.
yeah. And what they were talking about, I didn't feel like I caught Apple too often speaking specifically about on device, like all of this stays on your device. But they did talk about something, and I did not write down the name of this particular thing, but they essentially were talking about how a portion of their cloud, they've done the engineering to ensure its privateness, to ensure that they don't see the things. So yes, some of this stuff does rely on the cloud, but Apple's kind of sprinkling its Apple privacy magic on it. And whatever that detail is, I wish I could remember the name, and I don't want to spend the time trying to Google search to find it, but they did talk that up for a moment and kind of highlight that
Because
to
my
kind of.
argument about Apple and
Yeah.
privacy has been that they turned a bug into a feature, and that Apple never succeeded at the ad business, so they didn't need your privacy data. So they said, "Oh, all right,
Right.
we're gonna all right, then we're the privacy company, right?"
Yeah.
But
Right.
now, when you get into wanting to capture and analyze and feed back all of this personal action, it puts a very different cast on privacy for Apple. And
Hmm.
it'd be interesting to see whether they really do have those muscles well developed, or whether it was just a marketing ploy.
Right. Right. Private cloud compute, I believe, and realizing right now that this is not the first time that they've mentioned
Mhm.
private cloud compute, but that's what they were kind of highlighting yesterday. Looks like June 10th is when they first announced that kind of security and privacy effort for their cloud computing related to AI. So that's what it is.
Good.
But they did take time to focus on that
So,
a little
were
bit,
you
like
the
you said.
least bit tempted to buy an Apple phone?
Well, I mean, if I had all the money in the world, absolutely I would, just to have one and be able to play around with these features. But I do not have all the money in the world, or even a small portion of the money in the world that would be
See
required to buy one of
discussion
these devices.
of Kickstarter, folks. Yes,
Yeah, the Patreon.
get
Yeah.
this poor guy at Apple.
I mean, I do. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I do have an iPhone because we switched to T-Mobile not too long ago, and through it, they were like, "Well, we can get you an iPhone 13 for free. You just pay tax." And I was like, "Well, okay. I mean, at least then I have something in hand if some of these features, I want to play around with and everything." But I mean, at this point, it's 3 years old. Even though it's brand new, it's 3 years old. So most of these AI features probably not coming to the iPhone 13 would be my guess. I could be surprised, but so I don't know that's going to do me a whole lot of good. I could trade it in,
Well,
maybe.
that's I was just thinking. Yeah, I looked
Yeah,
for the not that we're getting a little off AI here, but I looked for the Pixel 9 and my
yeah,
Pixel 6. I think they were offering $450 trade in.
Yeah, I think the iPhone 13. I looked it up yesterday, and they're offering somewhere around like $250 trade in. So it's not a huge amount of trade
Right.
in, but it's something. It all comes down to money for me. Apple isn't the company that just sprinkles out review
No,
devices to anyone who
no,
requests them.
no.
you know. But I might consider picking one up for on a temporary basis and playing around with it, sending it or returning it or something just to like get a sense of it.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not, but I'm curious. I am legitimately curious to see because Apple is such a major player in mobility and in the smartphone world, and Google's been doing the AI thing for a while. I think one thing that did stand out to me that I'm curious to see how this works is it really seemed like what Apple was pushing with the advancements in its Siri offering and the way that they were showing things off. It seemed like Apple was going the direction of AI is embedded into the OS now, and that AI that's embedded there reaches into all these apps in these ways. And I
Hmm.
feel like Google does it a little differently. Google isn't embedding AI into the OS, it's making sure that you have the Gemini app installed and kind of putting some of these features into apps themselves, like Google Photos or whatever. And so I'm wondering, like, curiosity is, if it's embedded into the OS in an integrated way, the way Apple is actually proven to be really good at because it controls its whole ecosystem, is that going to be more enticing for people to actually, integrate their own use cases with these features? Are they going to have more success than Google's going to have on a case by case basis?
You raise an interesting ecosystem question, which is whether in an app ecosystem, you don't want to make it so complex that app developers can't develop apps because they can't,
Yeah.
AIify them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, it's got to happen in essence at the central location of Gemini. That
Mm-hmm.
you can do a bridge to Gemini, an API to Gemini, and you can figure out stuff. But you don't want to have to make AI stuff in your own app because it's just too complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how
Mm-hmm.
that works in terms of the future of app stores and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll
I
see.
don't know either. That is a really
If
good
all
question.
this AI actually becomes useful or not, we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, but they all see the benefit of it, and I think that is telling as well, right? Like if there was no there, Apple might not be playing the same game that everybody else is, but it really seems like they are. They're putting the summaries in there. They're putting the AI eraser tool, whatever they call it, in there. A lot of those features are what we've already seen and what we've already
Mhm.
heard. It's just now on an iPhone. So that gives some credence to the value, or what the technology companies believe to be the value of these tools. It just still really remains to be seen whether people actually care as much as they think they do.
Yeah, and
So,
that's the retail level of AI.
mm-hmm,
And there's the
mm-hmm.
because here on the show we have to talk about B2B and B2C and how much what's going to drive the business in the future. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, yeah, totally. That's all being laid out in front of our very eyes. Well, speaking of the AI on an app by app basis, Google also had an announcement this week. Was this week? No, this was the 5th. So this was late last week. But they rolled out some new, or actually, they rolled out one new feature to Google Photos. So this totally relates to what we were just talking about, how app, integrates into the,
Mhm.
or AI integrates into the app itself and not the OS layer. But anyways, they rolled out one feature right now, which is new and improved search in the app. So for example, I always felt like Google Photos was actually pretty good. If I was like, red, if I put in a query for red, it would pull back all the photos that had like red as a predominant color. Used to do that better before than it did in the last couple of years, which is interesting to me. I remember at one time it was really good at that, and then I tried in the last couple of years and didn't have as much success. Well, now they're kind of expanding on that and allowing you to do things like, their examples: Alice and me laughing, or kayaking on the lake surrounded by mountains, or Emma painting in the backyard. I actually opened up Google Photos and tried Jason at Christmas, and It worked really well. It didn't only just pull photos of me on Christmas Day, it pulled up photos of me during the month of December eating at a restaurant that had Christmas decorations in it. You know what I mean? Like, it understood the context of what I was looking for there. And yeah, I think that's an interesting capability.
So I tried a few different things. I asked it for parties, and it returned some things that were like a demonstration, but it was a lot of people that looked festive or festival, but also my father's birthday and a cake. So it knew that concept of party in a broader sense.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I asked it, you could ask it for things, favorite places we went to vacation. So I asked it, where have I had schnitzel? Nothing. But if I just searched on schnitzel, I have 5 pictures of schnitzels here, which is making me hungry. Plus a restaurant I forgot that I ate at in 2017 called Schnitzel Love.
Oh, okay. But it
So
wasn't able to identify that. Like, it knew what schnitzel was
no,
from
it
your
couldn't answer that
photos.
question.
Interesting.
It
I
found the
wonder why that
schnitzels.
is.
That's weird. Yeah, because I was
Huh.
looking at the story about trying to figure out how to place it one way or the other.
Well, okay, so yes, because there is another part to this story. So the
Right.
second part is ask photos, and I'm
Well,
wondering
I
if
just
maybe
don't
this is
have
why.
that yet. That's why.
I don't think you have it yet.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if what you're talking about is from the Ask Photos kind of feature set, this is open to select users right now. It's the conversational search in Google. So the examples they have, which sounds similar to what you're talking about, is what did we eat at the hotel in Stanley, or the top 10 things we saw in Idaho. Maybe not though. I mean, it's kind of they're kind of similar. I mean, Jason at Christmas seems
Yeah.
similar to the query that you put in there. So I don't know why it wouldn't have worked that way. But anyways, Ask Photos not rolled out to everyone yet, but coming soon.
What did I do
Small
at
group of people.
Disneyland? It gave me Disneyland, but it recognized the word Disneyland.
Yeah.
I put in for Happy Me.
Happy me.
Happy Me. And it gave me 2 pictures that were happy, but one, or I'm just looking like this. So I don't know.
Oh, now I'm so curious. Happy. Yeah. See, I haven't been putting me. I've been more putting Jason. Just because I know that
I wonder if
I'm
it'd be,
saved
how
in there
about
as
ask
Jason.
for something about happy daughters?
Oh, that's an interesting idea. Sorry, I'm not showing everybody this, but
You don't want to
it's
show
my
everybody that. No.
it's my photo roll. Happy daughters. I'm seeing pictures of my daughters smiling. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Like
All right.
like I don't know that I'm seeing everyone. I don't
No.
think that it's necessarily a cohesive and comprehensive collection of all the photos of my daughter smiling, because there's a handful of photos dating between now and July.
Right.
And I'm sure there's more of them in there. Oh, that's July of last year. Yeah, definitely not comprehensive. But nonetheless, it gives me a few options here and there, I suppose. That's
And then there's
interesting.
my absolutely most boring picture collection ever done, whiteboards.
compile and summarize all the whiteboards in my photo
Stupidest thing I
roll.
do. Oh, we're gonna save this. Like it's
Yeah.
history, and you got to hold on to it. But so I've got tons of pictures of whiteboards in here. But fine.
But the time you don't do that, Jeff, is the time
I know
you
it'd
actually
be
need to refer
the
it.
germ of a
refer to
brilliant idea, great invention, a patent that'll make a fortune. Yeah,
I mean, you could store those in your screenshots app now on the
right.
Pixel, and it will, allow you to contextualize that to a certain degree, depending on the complexity of it, for sure. So you've got options now. Anyways, interesting stuff. I've always really enjoyed the Google Photos app. It's definitely one of my favorite apps that Google has been working on over the years. A large reason, aside from the fact that it stores all my photos in the cloud with very easily, but it's because of this contextual stuff, finding things. When our data sets, in this case our photos, are hundreds of thousands of photos, it's really hard to find the thing that you need or you want in any given moment. So having a really effective and capable search that allows you to get granular with it, I think is really important.
That'll be interesting.
It seems like Google's moving in that direction. So.
And then what else can you do with that? It's if it can recognize if all these things we saw in Android, because of the AI, you can recognize the text in an image and find out that's a date and put that in your calendar, right?
Yeah.
This goes to the discussion we had before, where you're doing that with screenshots. This strikes me as the bridge to photos and eventually also glasses.
Mm.
Like what did we have for dinner in that restaurant we liked? Can it
Oh,
not
yeah.
only show
Or,
you the image of it, can it use the words from it?
yeah. Or, oh, I know this person. Dang, when's the last time I saw this
Oh
person?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
then I could be like, oh, hey, we had such a good time at Six Flags or whatever the case may be. That can also go in weird directions too, because people definitely feel strangely about using something like that to like identify other people. That's
Right.
goes in bad places pretty quickly. But anyways, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Interesting direction of the technology there. Speaking of Google, new research by a research consultancy called Authoritas showed that AI overviews.
That's probably an AI made up company name.
Authoritas. Just reminds me of who is it? Is it someone from South Park? Authority. Anyways, somebody out there got that. Showed that AI overviews, so this is Google's search product where you put in a search in their normal search product, and up at the top of the search is the little AI kind of summary or collection of information from some of the results. They were looking at kind of the presence of that product, one, because if you remember, this was rolled out, a couple of months ago, and it was rolled out widely. And then Google really peeled it back because it was offering pretty poor information up there, in some cases, dangerous information. And so Google really kind of peeled it back. Well, according to this research, now it's being, in their study of it anyways, it's being offered around 17% of the time for queries in the UK and the US currently. And then let's see here. They found that AI answers are not likely to be given with current events queries. So it happens sometimes, but not all the time. But on a deeper level, it seems to impact publisher visibility in search, which is a really big question and concern for businesses who are creating content. That one example they gave is that Martha Stewart article on how to kill wasps is in the AI rewrite of that happens to be in the top position when you do that query. The original article appears on the third full page scroll down when you're on mobile. So it's pulling that information from that article, but it's putting that article way down in the search results versus the AI overview that's up at the very top.
So I thought about that one as an example, right? It's one matter if you have exclusive reporting about something, but Martha is not the only source for knowing how to kill wasps. As cruel as Martha may be to buzzing insects, she ain't the only one.
Yeah.
And so if you think about this not from the publisher's perspective, but from the user's perspective, all you want to know as the thing is buzzing around you and you're getting stung is, how do I kill wasps? Right.
Yeah.
And it's information. It's not treatment. There's not copyright. There's not. I think we've got to recognize that kind of commodified information is not where you find your value anymore. And yes, this ruins it. It happens to be that this kind of search ruins it, but so be it. I mean, I could just as easily call the library. The librarian could go look up what you used to do in the old days. Nice librarians would go look up a book and come back on the phone and tell you how to kill the wasp. And they're probably not giving you a citation that this is
you're right.
Stewart's magazines, right?
Found in the book by author, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
And all you care about as the user is the information, right?
Interesting perspective.
So,
yeah.
Publishers are going to scream bloody murder, insist they're owed all kinds of money because of this. But if all they're giving you is commodity information, it's going to be treated as a commodity.
So one question I have that's super interesting. I'm happy that you said that. That what that brings to mind for me is one question that I have here is how, in the course of this study, are they saying that Martha Stewart's information was used primarily because that's the reference that Google gives, or is that AI generated blurb an amalgamation of many sources that say the same thing, and they're and Martha Stewart was just one of them, and so they're linking to just one of them because they're not using all of them, right?
No, but logically, I would have to believe it's the latter in the sense that unless the system knows that Martha Stewart is a tremendous resource in etymology.
Yeah, right.
That's the wrong word, I think.
And trustworthy. like,
right,
and
and all of that.
always gives the correct information.
What it's going to value
Yeah.
is the commonality.
Yes.
Kill and wasps includes these elements in enough places because it's all relational, right? It's
Yep.
all about uh, a chart of the relationships of words. That's what the
Yes.
training is, right? So it's got to have found those words in common relationships sufficiently to pump up those tokens to say we're going to say wasp kill soap, whatever it said here. How do you kill
Whatever the solution was. Now I'm kind of curious because I don't like
soap and
wasps.
water is the first way. Another way is vinegar. Another way is wasp spray. Well, yeah, okay.
Oh,
Go
okay.
buy
Well,
it.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Let me tell you the trick with wasps. What you do is you use wasp killing spray.
Exactly.
Just keep it a secret. We don't want everyone to know the solution here.
Right.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. Okay. Well, I do also think that this is interesting from the perspective of the fact that Google has said already in the past that AI overviews get more clicks for sites, not less. They have not provided, my understanding anyways, any evidence to support that assertion other than saying this is what we've found. So yeah, I think jury's still out. I mean, the part of this report was really just trying to make it the case for the fact that search algorithms and what the signals that impact search rankings are going to be widely impacted because of AI features like this, like AI overviews, and people are just going to have to figure out how they play the game differently. But that's kind of also always the case, right? Because Google's search algorithms really do change over time. They're never stationary and stagnant for too long, anyways.
I mean, the great example of this is that publishers scream bloody murder over. We've talked about this before about Perplexity's discovery.
Yeah.
And if any given story, I just pulled up the Google loses appeal $2.7 billion in EU antitrust fund. Fine. So they do that as an agglomerated story, like the kind of box on Google, but they do cite, and the 4 stories they cite are not identical, but all the same information is there on top. So you can have a human being rewriting each other, which is what we do as journalists, or the machine in turn does it because they do it. And what's worse? I'm not so sure.
What's worse or what's even different there?
Right. Well, and
freak out about the machine doing the rewriting thing. But I mean, if humans are doing it, like, what is the difference here? Other than it's automatic.
Right. And what's better here is that it can then ask a question. What are the main arguments Apple used? Well, now it's going to think, and it's going to give me 4 answers. Right, compliance with Irish tax laws, economic contributions, state aid misinterpretation, and international taxation principles. Okay, I got that information a lot faster than I would reading a 20-inch narrative of the whole story, where I've got to get all the background and I got everything else. So that's the other problem is that we're just not built for that world.
Yeah, interesting.
It's not like it's trying to kill us. It's like consumers will want a different path to getting information they want. And if we're not part of that path, well, tough noogies, as they used to say on Saturday Night Live.
Yep. Left behind. And then one more before we take a break, a new treaty called the Framework Convention on Artificial Intelligence, signed by the US, the UK, and the EU, and few other places in there as well, but I think all contained within the EU, if I'm not mistaken. It ensures that artificial intelligence aligns with, quote, human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. And each signatory must, and this is a quote, adopt or maintain appropriate legislative, administrative, or other measures that are reflected by the framework. So I don't know that there's necessarily a must or what. They're just making the promise. Is there any sort of, penalty here?
No, I mean, even though they say it's legally enforceable and all that, it's a treaty. It just means that it's a framework wherein governments can deal with these kinds of issues. I think that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. The problem I have is things like the California AI legislation now on the governor's desk, is that it gets so specific in what it's doing. I think frameworks as a beginning point are okay. So I don't object to that. And the AI law in the EU is more of a framework than it is a statute.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's okay.
Yeah. But, it's the first legally enforceable AI treaty, as The Verge points out. So notable, I suppose, in that regard, and, potentially a model for other things that will come after it. How much impact it has in the grand scheme of things, I guess, remains to be seen. But there we are. All right. Let's take a quick break. And then in the latter half of the episode, we've got some really interesting, and it really does seem like the format of this show is becoming like the first half is like what is the news, the gruffy news. And then the last half is like, oh my goodness, check this out, And I'm okay with it. I like it. I like having a little bit of that in there. That's coming up in a second.
Well, we also have some stuff coming up in the comments, if I can, just quickly. Jesse Scott came in the comments and said that Notebook LM is rolling out Audio Overview, a feature that turns your documents, slides, and charts into engaging audio discussions. When you open a notebook, I'm reading from 9 to 5 Google now, and go into a high-level guide, it already lets you create a fact, table of contents, and so on. But now they can summarize your added sources and make connections between topics and banter. So it sounds like we're replaced, Jason.
Yeah.
It's a podcast. All we have to do is give it the Notebook LM the rundown, and there's it. We got a show.
Oh my goodness. Like I'm half tempted and half not. Like just to see what would come out of that. But then I've also heard podcasts that are this podcast is done by AI, and that's the cool thing about it. I'm like, oh no, thank you. So as tempted as I am to explore that, I doubt it'll be released.
Okay, Jesse, you tried to replace us, so we wouldn't go back up to the commercial, but now we're coming back after the commercial.
That's right. I love it, though. I think that was a good story to sneak in there. Thank you, Jesse. All right, quick break, then we'll come back. All right, so I thought this was interesting. You put in a story, or not a story, more like a report by WayMo about
kind of a cross between transparency and PR.
Yeah. So what is this? It's a safety impact page where they're really, at least trying to show data that they've compiled about their vehicle fleet, ultimately in an effort to show, hey, we're doing pretty good. Basically, they say that Waymo vehicles have been reported to be in around 73% fewer injury-causing crashes compared to human drivers.
This is like an SAT test question. So it's 73% fewer injury-causing crashes. Or compared to what, and given what raw number. So then it has a down arrow and says 46 fewer.
46 fewer.
Then what's the total? I'm trying to get a sense of the larger image here. Right? There's nothing to click on, and I don't know much here.
Yeah. Well, it's and so a little extra context. Compared to a human driver over the same 22-mile distance in Phoenix and San Francisco, the Waymo driver had, and then 73% fewer injuries.
But what I don't know is how many injury-causing crashes did it have?
Yes, right. Well, and especially when you consider how many actual vehicles are driving in these areas, which is not that many, I don't think.
That was the frustration. I put this in here, but that's the frustration I had, was I couldn't get a sense of raw numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a percentage, but you want to be able to dial into that a little bit more. Waymo vehicles have now driven 22 million miles since launch in LA, San Francisco, and Phoenix, with a fleet of around 300 vehicles. So that's a small number of vehicles that, and I guess the question that I have is, is this information done in a way where that small amount of vehicles is truly representative of a bigger picture? Or, and I mean, obviously, from what I can tell, we don't have that information to know that for sure.
I mean, one matter. The other thing, to be fair to them, is they could have picked Des Moines. San Francisco and Los Angeles are challenging places to drive.
Yeah, really good point. Really good point. Yeah, I mean, yes, LA is a challenging place to drive because there's so much traffic and everything like that. San Francisco is just a unique geography that is, oh, it's so complicated. It's complicated for humans driving around San Francisco. I'm so happy I don't have to deal with that every day, if I'm honest. Um, yeah, they also said 48% fewer police reported crashes, 84% fewer airbag deployment crashes. So, by that metric or by those examples, seemingly safer than humans.
Right.
Still going to run up against the ongoing kind of struggle and difficulty that I think autonomous vehicle makers run into, which is just the fact that for whatever reason, be it right or wrong, we as humans have a hard time accepting any sort of bad outcome from an autonomous vehicle versus the human side of things, where we are more accepting of the fact that humans are flawed, but we are not accepting of the fact that computers and systems like this are also flawed. They're not going to work 100% perfectly,
My friend David Weinberger, who's written a whole bunch of books, starting as co-author of Clue Train Manifesto, and Everything's Miscellaneous, and other wonderful, wonderful books. He's a philosopher.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he made the point that an accident is not an accident. An accident is something that we can't explain.
Mm.
Right. And I think that's what throws us off in human terms is, oh, that was just an accident.
Mm-hmm.
No, it had some cause and effect that went on to
Right.
make it happen.
There's
Right.
something behind it. Yeah.
And it's interesting that you can't necessarily explain that when it comes to us because we're just strange, random beings.
Mm-hmm.
But here, what causes accidents and why is going to yield more data. And it'll be interesting to kind of understand the causes, not only on the Waymo side, but also on the other vehicle side, the human
Mm-hmm.
side
Mm-hmm.
of a crash. Was it Waymo's fault or not? Is there such a thing as fault here? It's just interesting. I'm curious, Jason, when you think about a self-driving car in your head, in the automatic categorization in your head, does that fall under robotics to you?
Yeah, I think to a certain degree it does. I mean, I do have a Tesla. We have a Tesla here, Model Y, that we got, at this point, I think we got it like 3 years ago almost. And not too long ago, Tesla rolled out a month free trial for everyone to use their fully autonomous driving capability, or the one that they have, whatever they
Mm-hmm.
call it, I can't remember. And so that was my first like personal firsthand experience with it. And it took a little trust. It took a little time for me to be like, okay, I feel comfortable with this now. I still didn't get completely comfortable with it. It felt pretty robotic to me. I mean, it's changing lanes. It's deciding that now's the right time to go into the other lane or speed up or slow down. It's making a lot of decisions. That autonomy feels robotic to me when
Mm-hmm,
it's
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
controlling the vehicle like that. So I would say yes. What about you?
Yeah, I think so. I just don't. We tend to have a mind's eye of robots,
Hmm.
and a car does not seem to be there, but I think it's absolutely part of that. Yeah, I mean the difference
I
between
think
that and
so.
an Amazon warehouse thing that's going around on wheels, it's
Yeah.
all robotic. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's driven by the same type of system, just a different format, just happens to be carrying around human passengers versus carrying around, a big box from the top shelf in the warehouse. I would absolutely. Yeah. The more that I think about this, the more I realize, yes, I think
yes.
the
Okay.
answer for me is yes. I
Our
consider them
good
very
friend
similar, the
Ozone
same.
asks says that he tends to distrust internal reports from any company, and this is to answer your question. This is a Waymo issued report. I don't think it's
Hmm.
independent per
Oh,
se.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is not an impartial report. This is Waymo reporting on its own, insights on its fleet and everything. And so you have to take that with a grain of salt.
And
Yeah, no
then
question
they
about it.
report their methodology and so on. So it'll be interesting to dig into it.
Yeah. And
But
thank you,
this is a case
Ozone
where
Nightmare. Thank you.
this drives me nuts that especially Tesla's is not regulated. Waymo, I think, is more regulated and has to jump through more hoops because there's no human being in the car. But
Yeah.
the so-called self-driving from Tesla, the fact that didn't undergo a lot more regulation, a lot more research with a lot more data, just drives
Hmm.
me crazy. It's out
Hmm.
there running 80 miles an hour and can kill people. Oh, okay, that's few. Elon wants to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. Very interesting. That's a good point. Well, in less lethal news, potentially, I can't think of any lethal news that would be attached to this, but Audible is inviting a small group of audiobook narrators to use its AI to create replicas of their voice. I feel like we talked about this to a certain degree in the past, about the possibility of this happening. And sorry, I don't have a Bloomberg subscription, so I can't show you the unencumbered version of this page, but use their AI to create replicas of their voices to be used on the Audiobook Creation Exchange. So the ACE, authors can use the exchange to select the voices that they want to read their books. So it's a way to really close the gap on books that have no audiobook component. Also a way for authors to potentially, line up the voices of some of their favorite narrators without those narrators being like, oh, I don't, no, I cost this much. My wonderful dulcet tones, I am very selective. They still have those audiobook narrators still have the choice to either accept or decline or whatever. But I guess they just don't have to go through the work, the time, which, you would know better than I. I'm sure it takes a lot of time and effort and
So
everything to narrate.
I've got a few things here. Gutenberg parenthesis took me, they scheduled 4 days. I did it in 3 days. And it's 3 hard days.
Yeah. How do you keep your voice going that whole time? Like, I would imagine
that's
after
part
all
of
talking,
it. Yeah. Plus the other thing that happens. So I do this podcast right after I've had lunch because that's what time it is here. And I tend to be a little, pardon me for this, more sure. And you want a little phlegmier for this show than I am for Twig because the time of the day. I couldn't figure out why am I always kind of just yucky. And I realized it. I just had lunch. So yeah, the different times of day, which you can hear often. You hear it especially if you listen to audiobook and somebody had to come in later to do an insert.
Oh, you definitely hear the tone. You hear
that. Yeah.
Sometimes the energeticness of them shifts, and I'm like, oh, this is a new recording. I can totally tell.
So I'm in multiple minds about this. It took me forever to get them to agree to do the Gutenberg parenthesis in audiobook. Pardon me, there I am doing it.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to do it myself, and I did it myself. The Web We Weave, which is out next month, still no deal on an audiobook, which is pissing me off. On the other hand, if this existed in easy form, on the one hand, I'm thinking, okay, if it made the audiobook more possible and we'd sell more books and more people would hear it, okay, do this. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, if you think it's me and it's not really my intonation of the meaning, no, I don't like that. If it's me, I got to be me. I have to be me. And so, as an author and an audiobook reader, I'm not sure what I think about this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it does give a narrator another path with which to, continue to make a living, because time is money. And as you say, reading one of these, books takes a lot. You've got to carve out the time for it. It takes a lot of effort versus, is a narrator in a position where they can be like, the really big major projects I'm willing to do in person, but I'm also willing to make kind of like a side, almost like a side hustle income or a separate tangent income of my business on these smaller ones that I'm happy to have my voice lent to, but that I don't actually have to put in the time and the work for. Does that, though, impact the value of the work that they do get paid for on a bigger scale?
Yeah, there are reputations. So when I did record the book, I recorded a studio in New York, and there were professional audiobook narrators there, right? And part of what this story is, well, they could expand, they could scale, right? Mm-hmm. They could loan their because there's some that are really well known now. They could loan their voice to that. But once again, if I'm listening to the book made by AI and it just doesn't have the same je ne sais quoi, then that affects the narrator's brand.
Yes, it does.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I haven't really heard an AI voice like Replica or whatever that has me sold 100%. You know what I mean? Like there's always something that becomes evident. Either it's a mispronounced word, or it's the fact that their intonation and inflection is always kept in the same place, and you never kind of steers out of that point. And at a certain point, like, I could not listen to a 12-hour book like that. Like, it would really get grating at a certain point. So the tells are still there.
Oh, they absolutely are. I went to a presentation at BDMI, which is the Bertelsmann investment arm, by now probably about a year ago. And there was a company there that had AI voice, but it also had the ability to control variation in that. And so what I speculated about at the time is I can see the day pretty soon where you end up with a voice markup language.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like punctuation and bold and italic. I think we have. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I could imagine that all right, I can then edit the AI of my voice. That's a joke. Pause here. Pause is pretty easy, but I could, get excited, get sad. Are there ways that you could change the markup of how the voice is going to operate? Also, by the way, teaching the AI the relationships of certain things about the structure of the language to the intonation of it would make the whole of AI voice better.
Yes.
But to do that, you've got to give me the power to fix it and train it.
Yeah, you're like
you need to give me a
language
for doing that. Yeah.
Make you excited and really dull, and sad, and build up the intensity and sarcasm. Totally, it's like a voice conductor. Super interesting. Yeah, I wonder if that's the direction. Although that sounds kind of tedious in its own right.
It does, but if instead of having to read the book for 3 or 4 days, I could spend half a day editing it, going through this. That's fine. No, that was a little bit off. How do I tweak that? And if I had the tool to tweak it, which again would mean a markup language, then I could see it being at least an improvement.
Yeah, totally, to what we have already. Okay, this kind of relates in a strange way. You had put in, you put in a link to a new site. I don't know if it's new, but it's new to me. A site called icon.me, and this is just really, really weird. I'm super curious to hear what you think about this. Quote, create winning influencer ads with AI. You can partner with creators and turn one video into 20 videos with AI, A/B testing, messaging, and find winning ads, they say. So the creator offers a simple video for the sponsor. So, in this case, like, this woman is holding up a green superfoods container from a company called Bloom. And I think this is actually an AI generated version. Let me see if we've got audio here.
Hey, it's Alex. As a pro in chess and poker, I need to stay focused. When my energy is low, I turn to Bloom Nutrition's greens. They help keep my energy up.
Okay. And so, it's an AI generated, that I believe is the output. That is one of the AI generated outputs.
But is it based on a real Alex?
It is based on a real video. So she, as the influencer, would upload her one take, and I'm imagining the script and all that kind of stuff might come from the company or, be approved through them or whatever. She would upload her video, and then that would then be turned into 20 different videos that are based on the video that she uploaded as the source. And so you end up as a potential sponsor, you end up with all these options. I thought this was funny. Turn one video into 20 videos with AI. No more waiting weeks for creators to make videos.
Those pesky humans.
They need all that time. Creators are just so lazy. They take weeks to create the videos. Anyways,
which
again,
really what it really enables, which is next year, is A/B testing.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you've got different pitches, you can try different things and see what the conversion is.
Yes.
Without making the creator have to create 20 videos. So in that sense, in an otherwise obnoxious field of influencers, I see the sense in it. But once again, it just makes all this stuff less believable.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm watching this one, and if you watch his hands get a little weird at times. They
Yeah.
like sprout an extra finger, and then a finger goes away right there. Oh, yep, yep. That was a little weird. Yeah, I mean, what comes up for me on this really ties into the Audible story that we were just talking about, which is trust and authenticity. Um, if there is any tell whatsoever that this is AI generated, how does the viewer actually feel about that? Or even beyond that, are we moving into a time where people don't care as much, where this becomes
I want my
normal?
influencers to be influenced. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
People might just be like, yeah, that's how influencers make money, or that's how audiobook narrators make money. And that's fine. Whatever. You got to make the bills.
Yeah. But
So
at
I
some
don't know.
point, if somebody's recommending something to you, you want to feel that there's some authenticity there.
I think that's super important. I totally
Right.
agree.
Right.
I totally agree.
I attended a World Economic Forum Davos AI governance meeting yesterday, virtually, and it was about implementation and ethics of AI and all kinds of questions. And it was interesting. It was some corporate people there, and they were talking about their structure and how they have an AI committee and how they have approval of rules and how they have this and how they have that. And there was a professor there who was really smart, and I've talked to before, and she's kind of in the middle of it. She said, "It sounds like all you're trying to do is check boxes. You're trying to create a cover your ass risk abatement uh, structure rather than trying to implement ethics." And so the question for all those influencers, how ethical is it as a field? I think people, when you do a commercial that you care about, you're only going to do things you actually care about. Leo all the time says, I won't advertise certain things. Yes, there are ethics in here. And so how this is implemented, in what ways? Now it says here that the influencers can approve all the videos made of them.
Right. That makes sense.
If you put words in Jason's mouth saying, I prefer Apple phones to Android, it's not the Jason I know and love. And Jason can disapprove that. So I get it. It makes life easier. You can do A/B testing. But yeah, I think when I put this in the rundown, you and I both have the same reaction of, are we sure about this?
Yeah. Yeah. The authenticity piece is the thing that really screams to me, because I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like what really drives the influencer kind of world and the influencer economy is that direct connection to person and that authentic kind of, the fact that a lot of people are watching some of these influencers, and whether it's true or not, believe that what they see is that person's authentic life, that they are living an authentic life. And you start getting into AI generated and start to see the tells of, oh, well, that was a little weird what happened to the fingers there, or there's that like weird kind of distant gaze that some of these things tend to give. They're getting better there, but these things kind of break that level of authenticity and connection from a human level.
Yeah, well, AI has already ruined online reviews. You cannot be assured that any review, whether it's on a website or whether it's an Amazon review or anywhere, they are generated in huge number now by AI. And so the authenticity of consumer reviews, which was our best hope for replacing the likes of a Consumer Reports, is now ruined. Thank you, AI.
Thanks, AI. Thanks for all the fish. This week in AI getting it wrong, if we've had a couple of those probably today already, but ESPN did an AI generated recap of a soccer game. This just caught my attention, and I thought it was interesting. Between North Carolina Courage and San Diego Wave FC, two teams. I mean, this is a sport that I do not watch personally, so my apologies, but they did an AI generated recap of this, as ESPN apparently does on some games from different divisions around the world and around the country. The original version of the recap, because it's been corrected since, was around 215 words, listed all of the pertinent details of the game, except for the reason most people saw it as important, which was it had the two-time World Cup winner and Olympic gold medalist Alex Morgan there playing her last professional match. It had a tearful goodbye moment with the stadium chanting her name and her wishing the crowd and her team goodbye and wishing everyone well and everything. It was this very kind of like emotional moment for this game. And for fans, my understanding, a really big reason to actually watch the game. Of course, the AI generated recap didn't know any of that, or didn't have any
no
sort
way
of
to know.
understanding.
And
It
some
had no way of knowing.
machine it has no news judgment. It doesn't know.
Yeah.
It's another damn game. Okay, I'll give it the game.
Yeah, so I'll give you the score, and I'll give you the highlights of the points made and everything like that. I think her name wasn't even mentioned at all
That's
in the recap initially. Now it's there. Like, I checked the article, and of course they have a little blurb there, which, I'm assuming one of the editors typed up, or maybe they fed it more information and had it regenerate. But anyways, thought that was interesting. An interesting example of how, these things, like you just said, they're not going to automatically know or infer all the same things that a human, might, without the pertinent information in the data set there to begin with. It's not just going to automatically know this stuff. It's not part of the oxygen. So
not unless a human tells them, or unless it happens to read 20 stories online and recognize it from there. Right.
Yeah. Right.
It has to have that basis.
Yeah, exactly that. And finally, because apparently we end this show with robots, it's just kind of, they keep happening. Robots keep happening. Apparently this show is going to be AI and robots eventually. But a new one, Isaac is its name, by Weave Robots. And this just doesn't even look real right now, but a personal robot made in California, expected to ship to first consumers in fall of 2025. So not that long, in a year from now. And, and once again, I'll believe it when I see it. But this thing is tall. It's not humanoid. It definitely looks like a robot. It's meant to accomplish home tasks. So things like folding laundry, tidying, organizing spaces, bringing you glasses of wine while you sit on the couch, really important things like that. Can take, bring you over a cup of coffee, has voice or text commands that you can issue to it. The camera that's on the device actually folds away when it's not in use. So, the robot isn't watching you. And it costs $59,000 to the first 30 customers. There you go.
I looked at a toy for very rich people who can do this.
Yes.
I think limited abilities. I mean, the kind of variety of tasks you do, it'd be very hard for just all of them. But what really hit me was for accessibility. If someone were handicapped and can't do some of these tasks, then I can see real value in this. But there's not a big business in that, because people who are handicapped don't have as much money. And that's the shame. That's the highest utility I could imagine would be for somebody who has limited mobility, limited sight, limited, things like Parkinson's, limited surety of movement. And that's who should be using this, but insurance isn't going to pay for it. And so this isn't going to do the good that it could do.
Yeah, I mean, the question that I have in watching the examples that the video kind of gave, bringing over the cup of coffee, bringing over the glasses of wine to the couple that's sitting on the couch, is the robot just a deliverer, or did the robot actually prepare any of that? I know when I pour myself a glass of wine, that glass of wine comes with me. I don't just leave it on the counter and go sit down on the couch and then wait for someone to bring it to me. It's a little weird there. Like the cup of coffee, it's just sitting on the countertop. Did a human make the cup of coffee and then set it there and be like, all right, now I'm going to ask my robot to bring it to me? So I don't know. I could be wrong. It could actually make you coffee or pour you a glass of wine, but interesting nonetheless.
I could buy a lot of really good wine for $60,000 though, and a good corkscrew.
That's true. Do you want to potentially sacrifice that liquid gold that's in that glass by asking your robot to deliver it to you? I don't know. I don't know that you do.
So now all I can afford is for it to bring me Mountain Dew. Yeah, bad choice.
Right. Just hopefully it doesn't, crush the can in the process. Well, that's it. We've reached the end of this episode of AI Inside. A lot of fun talking about this week in the world of artificial intelligence.
For those of you who watch live next week, we're going to be
so that's right. That's right. We are going to be going early. I have a trip to New York for another podcast that I do, Android Faithful. We're going to DroidCon in New York Wednesday through Friday. So our normal recording of this show is Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Next week, however, we're going to be doing it on Tuesday. So 11, 12, 14, what was that? September 17th, Tuesday, September 17th at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. So, if you just go to the Techsploiter, if you want to watch it live, go to the Techsploiter YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Techsploiter, and I will have on there a little placeholder for the live event, so you can add it. Or, many of you are watching live through Twitter, through Jeff's kind of rebroadcast of this through Twitter. So you'll just see it in Twitter, where I'm sure you live much of your life as you're doing your workday anyway. So, so just look for that. But yes, different day. And I think the podcast is going to publish on the Tuesday. There's no reason to hold it for Wednesday. So I'll just publish it on the Tuesday once it's all recorded.
Right.
And then, of course, Gutenberg.com if you want to find all things Jeff Jarvis for now.
And my page isn't up yet, but if you want the web we weave, search for that and go to the Hachette basic book site and use the code WEB20, WEB 20 for a 20% discount.
Excellent. Definitely do that. Looking forward to the day when it'll be on your page so I can show it off.
Gotta get my son, yeah.
and flash it on screen for everybody to see with their eyes. And then finally, we've said it once before. We'll say it again. You can support us on Patreon. And if you do that, you get a lot of extra stuff in the process, and not to mention our appreciation and gratitude. It's patreon.com/AI Inside Show. We have ad-free shows, early access to AI related videos on the Techsploiter YouTube channel, Discord community, hangouts with the community with Jeff and I at times. And you can also get an AI Inside t-shirt if you become an executive producer of this show, like Dr. Do, Jeffrey Maricini, WPVM 103.7 in Asheville, North Carolina, and Paul Lang. So we've got 4 executive producers on the show.
So many bosses telling us what to do. Jeez.
I know. And we'd love to have more. I'd love to be able to pull out my thumb when I show off how many we have. So, patreon.com/AI Inside Show, and throw your support. And we really do appreciate when you do that. So thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening to this show. Find everything you need to know at AIinside.show. That is the single place on the web where everything that you need to know can be found. And we appreciate you. We'll see you next time on another episode of AI Inside. Bye, everybody.